Hey everyone, welcome to Furniture Recreated. My name is Melanie. This week's project is an Ethan Allen desk. It's very large and I would like to turn it into a coffee table. Stick around. If you discover that the finish on your piece is rather thick or heavy, then you need to be using a higher grit sandpaper such as 100 or 80. Normally I would use a 120, but when you start to pick up the finish on your sandpaper, that is only going to turn around and start to scratch the wood that you're working on, and you don't want that. So you need to use a higher grit so that doesn't happen. And then you can go to a 120, and then you go to 220, and then to 400, and that's how you get that really nice finish. Of course, the finish on the top was going to be much thicker, so that's why I'm stripping the top. The sides here, I call those wings. They just made the table too long, so I decided to take them off. Since I want this to be a coffee table, I'm using my all-purpose tool to cut off the legs so I can replace them with 3-inch feet. Thought the camera was on, it wasn't. I just took these off, they were right here. Now I need to take the screws out before I throw them away for safety. I mixed 2 fusion mineral paint colors together to get this color. I used Algonquin and Hazelwood. If you want to see exactly how I made this, you can check out the short called I Made a New Paint Color. Because of the holes on the sides of the table, I was going to paint the sides and I needed to fill them with wood filler first. Just like when you're painting a wall, I like to cut in all the way around and then use my roller, and it just makes it easier work. And it gives it a nice finish. Don't forget that you can always put wood filler on over the paint if you discover some holes that you didn't see before. That's not a problem. After I finished sanding the top, I realized I wasn't crazy about the wood grain, so I decided to paint it. But here you see me wiping the paint back off because what I didn't realize is I could do a wash. I just wasn't thinking. So I took the color paint that I made and I added some water, and really you can make it thin or thick. It really depends on you. There's no exact formula to this, and just wipe it on. Then take a wet rag and drag it back through to spread it out. And really, it's all a matter of taste. You can do it however you think it looks good. Since I was making it a coffee table, I had to make sure that the back was finished because you'd be able to see this piece all the way around. My original idea was to paint the panels that you see me vacuuming and then use the trim to stain. But I decided that was going to look a little too busy for me, so I decided in the end just to paint the whole side. When I took off the hardware on the drawers, I discovered this giant well in the middle and realized that any hardware I bought was going to have to be round and it was going to have to be big. So I measured that wasn't a problem, but when I realized that the well had little ridges and it was a little more difficult to get that hardware to set in there, I needed to sand away, chip away at the wood in order to make it a flatter surface. And this is just really showing you the struggles I had, including drilling 2 holes on one side to make it work. But that I did. It did work in the end, and it covered up any flaws that I may have created while I was trying to chisel away the wood. I tried a darker stain, but that didn't look very good. So I went with the natural color of the wood, and on the drawers, it really did look very pretty. Let me take you over to this crazy table of mine. The top here, I decided to do a wash with the paint that I made because when I was sanding it, I just didn't like the way the wood looked. It was really rustic looking, which is fine. I mean, it just looked like a dirty wood. There was a lot of green streaks, which I don't like. So here's my dilemma. This is the wash. The gray wash. I sanded down the edge, and what I was going to do is stain that part. So when I got to the part where I was going to stain, look around to this side, you can see it's actually on the other side, but it doesn't matter. This section here, I decided I would try and stain with a Java color, which is a darker General Finishes stain. It looked all right on this, but here it wasn't taking well and it just didn't look right. So now I've decided to just go with the natural color of the wood with just the natural stain. It looks like this. So I'm kind of at a crossroads. I'm waiting for the feet that I ordered to come in. I did get the hardware. I figured that dilemma out. It wasn't quite fitting in that little hole, but I've sanded both the edges out, measured it, and I think it's going to work fine now. I'm going to figure out what to do next, and you'll be the first to know. Stick around. Just a quick reminder to use a finishing pad between each coat of paint that you put on to make it nice and smooth. Now the first wash that I did was fine, except I wanted a little bit more interest, so I added this blue pine. I did the same thing. I watered it down and then I just put some stripes across it, and then I added a little bit of the color I made in between that so that it would blend together. I didn't really want these solid stripes all the way across. I wanted it to be a little more subtle than that. This is the space that used to have a file cabinet in it. Now I want it to be a cubby. So I need to put panels in there. And thanks to Phil, he cut some panels for me. He used a table saw. I don't like the table saw. And I'm just putting some natural stain on it. And then when that dries, I'm going to put some top coat. I just put the base in here. It's in place. We've got these little blocks down here to hold it in place so I can put the back on and it'll sit right on top of there. That's the next piece I'm going to put in. Okay. You won't break my soul, you won't break my soul. The panels I'm using are bits and pieces that I've put in other pieces of furniture. I get them at Home Depot. They tend to be kind of expensive because they are panels that you put on the side of a cabinet in the kitchen. and they are expensive, so I want to make sure I use every bit of that wood that I can. This is the trim that's going to trim out that cubby, because those panels that I put in are going to show, and I don't want them to show. I want it to look finished. What you see here is a heavy-duty top plate, and that piece of metal, that triangle, is how you attach legs or feet to the bottom of a piece of furniture. Now, sometimes when you buy hardware, that stuff comes with it. But in this case, these feet did not have that. They just had a very fat screw in the bottom of the foot. So I needed something to screw it into. And this is how you do it. The trim that's going to go around the cubby is going to have mitered corners so that it has a very finished look. And I'm using my miter saw to bevel those edges in order to do that. Whenever I use my clamps for anything, I make sure that I cover it first to protect the area that I've just finished. Look how nice that mitered corner looks. By the way, I put 3 coats of top coat on the base of that cubby. Well, we've come to the end of another project, and I had no idea where this one was going to come out on the other end, and this one sort of evolved over the time that I worked on it. I had a little trouble with the top, trying to decide what I wanted to do with it, but I really wanted this cubby, so I was determined to get that done. Thank you to Phil for making some cuts for me, and overall, I think it's a very cool piece. I may keep this to put in my living room. I haven't decided yet. Thank you for being here. Good luck on your next project, and I will see you next time.
You can do it.
Come closer, dance for me. Easy, tiger, easy, let your hair down. Come closer, let me see all your million faces and all your million mistakes. You don't need to hide. Come closer so that we can be together.
Hey, thanks for watching my video. You can find more videos just like this on my YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe.